massive trades this week, guys. I'm super proud of you all. And as you can see, the same entry model that I keep on talking about during our sessions is the same thing that we keep on seeing in the market, right? So we just have to replicate this over and over again, right? Remember, as traders, the goal is to maximize profit and minimize losses. So whenever we are trading, we want to gather as many confirmations as we can so that we can build confidence behind the trade. Your confidence behind the trade is not going to come based on your emotions. Your confidence should be based on the confluences that you build before the trade. What's good, traders? How you're doing? I hope you had a fantastic trading week. In this video, what I want to do is to share with you some traits and approaches that I shared with my private community so that you can also apply that, in the week coming. All right. So without wasting much time, let's just jump into it. This week, we just looked at 3 pairs: gold, Euro USD, and GBPUSD. All right. So let's start with GBPUSD. I have my private community here on Discord. I'm going to go ahead and go to the setups. Yeah. So this is setups. This is GU, and I sent this setup on the 19th of March, right? So this is the daily time frame. I said we have price moving correctively towards the upside, a possible rising wedge. So this was the structure on the daily time frame, right? This is what I was looking at. Price moved impulsively and we started correcting towards this level, right? We'll get on the chart and I'll break it down. But if you look at this to the left side, you can see this was a key level, a key level, a key level, right? So the focus was what price would do at that level. And then we went down the 4H. If you look at the 4H analysis as well, this is the rising wedge that was pushing to the upside. Within the rising wedge, you can see we're still creating higher highs, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, right? So there was no structure being broken. This was still an uptrend, and this was the 4H range. So this was 4H high, 4H low. We were just ranging in this zone. We came to that support level on the 4H. So we could either, I was looking for buying opportunities at least to the upside, or if price breaks this low, then this will be a move to the downside. So this was a 4H analysis. We'll go on the 15 minutes as well. This is the 15 minutes, right? So within the 4H highs and lows, we had this 15 minutes, right? If you look at this line, there's a 4H high, the 4H low, and then this is where we were trading at the support level. So even within the 15 minutes, this was my analysis. Price was also creating lower lows and lower highs, lower lows and lower highs, and this was a small double bottom, right? We're ranging in this zone. So my entry for buying opportunities will be right after breaking above this level, right? This zone. Right after we break out, this will be a buy to the upside, or waiting for that 4H low to be broken to the downside. So now let's jump on the chart and let's see how everything played out. Yeah, so here we are on the daily time frame on GBPUSD. We're just creating higher highs and higher lows. Price moved impulsively and we started correcting towards the upside, below this key level, right? So why do I even have this as my key level? Looking to my left, I can see that this is an area where price dropped. Also right here, we had price bouncing on top of this, acting as a support, move to the upside. This area also acted as a resistance, right? That is why I have this level. But this is not really that important to me. This is only helping me or giving me information, right? So I'm not really selling here because I have this resistance level. The main thing that I want to look at is market structure. This, right? How are we approaching this area that I have marked as my resistance, right? Because if I close my eyes literally and draw any random lines on the chart, trust me, if we go to the left side, we will see that these random lines that I even close my eyes to draw, they acted as a support, resistance in the past. So what am I trying to say? Support and resistance levels, they are everywhere. Even if you close your eyes and you draw them and you look to your left, you will still find a resistance or a support. But the main thing is what happens or how price reacts towards that level, right? This is an example I always give my students. In Ghana, there are some roads, whenever you are driving on, there will be a notice board or a signboard somewhere here that will say, slow down, 15 people died here, right? Why do you think they have this kind of signboard or notice by the roadside at this area, right? Because this is something that happened in the past. In the past, people died here. So whenever you are driving and you approach this level, it doesn't mean you're gonna die, but you just have to be extra careful. You just have to focus on what is happening there. You just want to take your time and see what is happening there, right? That is the same as the support and resistance level. The resistance level, the support level, the key areas, the supply and demand, your fair value gaps, whatever. These are areas in the market that you have to focus on what price will do when we get there, right? So main thing that you really want to focus on is market structure. So with this, based on my understanding in the market, I know the price moved impulsively and we started correcting towards the upside. This is just a simple nature's theory, right? Impulse, correction to the upside. There's a rising wedge pattern, a possible rising wedge pattern that could drop. Because if I compare the move from here to there, this is just telling us that we had a lot of buyers pushing price to the upside. Why didn't they push it all the way to this level? Why is this happening? Right, we are still creating high highs and high lows, but the momentum from the buyers from this level to here has reduced. We now have buyers obviously pushing it to the upside, but we also have sellers being involved here. So this tells us that the momentum from this level, right, has reduced when we got here, right? So this could be, the onset of, a bearish structure to the downside. This is just a pattern in the market called the rising wedge, right? The opposite is also the falling wedge. When we say it like that, this could be a beginning of a move to the upside. So looking at this in my head, I was like, you know what? Yes, price break to the upside? Yes, obviously it could have happened. We could have just broken to the upside. The fact that we are seeing this doesn't mean we are straightly looking for selling opportunities. But in my head, the fact that I've seen this, I'm open to sales because I'm seeing this, right? And I'm open to buys as well, as long as we break above this, right? In trading, you don't want to just pick a side. You want to be in the middle and react to the market, right? So let's go to the 4H. On the 4H, we were here. So I drew this 4H high, 4H low, and I said that, we created a high, a low, price was just ranging right here, right? So yes, we were still on an uptrend, even though I saw this rising wedge pattern looking for sales. But at this level, when I was doing the analysis, my sales or my interest will be when we break below this. This is the only time I will be looking for sales. But as long as this low has not been broken, we could still push to the upside. So I was also open for buys as well. So on the 15 minutes, this was the analysis as well, right? I drew this range because if you look at the 15-minute trend right here, we're creating lower lows and lower highs, lower lows and lower highs, right? This was a lower low, lower high, lower low. We were just ranging right here, right? So for entry to the upside is gonna happen right after the break of this. This is where I'm looking forward to getting to for buys, right? But mind you, based on the structure that I'm seeing on the daily, I'm not even really looking forward to hold this to the upside. My main interest is not really for me to get into this buys. This is just an opportunity that came by. But my main focus is to how to capitalize from the sales, right? Because obviously I know that this trend could reverse to the downside. So my focus is how to capitalize from the sales. Now look at the 15-minute structure as well. So we bounced right here, we pushed back to that 4H high, right? So this becomes key level, right? This is an area where price dropped. Now look at how we got there as well. We moved impulsively and price started going sideways. This is a correction phase to the side, right? Let me copy this price action right here. And then let me just bring it, somewhere here. All right. We're going to compare this price action to what we are seeing on the daily time frame. And you will see that the market repeats itself. The market repeats itself, right? So let's go to the daily time frame and let's put this side by side. This is the structure. If you look at this on the daily time frame, this is a 15-minute structure that I just cut. This is an impulse, this is a correction, this is an impulse, this is a correction. On the 15 minutes, obviously price dropped. That is the same thing we are seeing here. The market repeats itself. You just have to understand what this means, the idea behind this, and the reason why the market is reacting this way, So let's go back to our 15-minute structure. And that was where the entry came. So after seeing this, obviously just waiting for structure to shift, and then that was just the entry right there. There are so many trades that we took, but I feel like breaking this down so that you get to understand the entry model and how we also got into this based on the price action, the market structure, the chart patterns, and all of that, so that you can also replicate this, going forward. The same thing happened on gold. I'll go on gold right here. So if you look at gold as well, this is actually a nice head and shoulder pattern that has played out, right? This was spotted way before it even played out in the community. But let me just break this down and then you get to understand what happened. So you can see we're just creating higher high, higher low. We broke the structure, created a higher high. This is the 1H time frame. On the 4H, this was still bullish, but on the 1H, we had a double top right here, and then structure shifted. So on the 1H, we were bearish, right? Even though the 4H was bullish, this was just the 1H bearish structure, right? So 1H created a low right here. Let me just go on the 15 minutes so that it becomes very clear. Mind you, this was the 1H bearish structure, right? So on the 15 minutes, you will see a very strong trend. So here we are on the 15 minutes. Price was just creating lower lows and lower highs, right? So this was also another trade that was taken somewhere here by one of my members. This was just double top, break of the neckline, retest on the 5 minutes, and then this was an entry. This is not even what I want to talk about. Look at the 15-minute structure. So obviously 15 minutes was just creating lower lows and lower highs, right? And then we got to this level, price started pushing to the upside, higher high, high low, high high. This is a very simple market structure. You just have to understand the very basic market structure. If I pull this here, let me draw this. Lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, and then we had this. So if I bring this here, is this an uptrend or we are still on a downtrend? Is this an uptrend or we are still on a downtrend? Obviously, we are still on a downtrend, right? Even though we are having this move, but it doesn't mean we are on an uptrend because there's the recent high that took out this low. So we have a lower low, right? As long as this high is not being broken, we are still on an uptrend. So this can create higher highs and higher lows, even get to this level and drop. The only time we'll be looking for buying opportunities is when we break above this. We can look for buying opportunities at this level, right? So you just have to wonder. This is also one way to mark up key levels. So this now becomes a key level, right? I want to see how price gets here. Are we going to break above for buys or we are going to reverse? We're going to see that on the chart, right? So we have identified our key level. We now want to see what will happen at that key level. So look at this. This was our key level. Even if you look to the left, it was a very strong support and resistance level here, right here, there, here, and even here, right? And you can see that we're moving very corrective as well. So we had a very big drop, price moved very corrective. Now focus on this area. How did we get there? The main question is how did we get there, right? So we moved impulsively and then price started moving corrective like that. This is the same thing that happened on GBPUSD on the 15 minutes, on the daily. This is the same structure, right? So this is just telling me that, you know what, we had a very strong impulsive move by the buyers and then we started correcting to the sideways. If we see any change of structure or break of the low somewhere here, this could be a move to the downside. And obviously, that is the exact thing that happened. We have an impulsive move. This structure, even within this structure, that is something I teach in my community as well, the pattern within pattern. And then we had a very strong move to the downside, right? Very, very beautiful trade that we took, just replicating the same entry model that I just explained, right? So are we going to see this kind of entry model all the time in the market? No, we're not going to see this all the time in the market. But whenever we see them, we're not going to spare them. We're going to take advantage of this, right? It's just like a soldier going, for war, right? They are not going with just one weapon. They don't go with a knife, just a knife or whatever. They go with a knife. They have guns, not even just one gun. They have a pistol. They have AK-47. They have whatever. Just name them. They have grenades. Why do they have different weapons if the main goal is just to assassinate their enemies, right? They have different weapons because each weapon functions in a different environment, right? You cannot just approach your enemies. One soldier cannot just go and stand in the midst of 1,000 enemies and start using a knife. By the time you are done even attacking one person, you'll be assassinated, right? Because the knife is not going to do that job, right? So if you see 1,000 people and you want to attack, you're going with a grenade, right? It's basically like that. So in the market, there are different entry models, different approaches based on the market condition, right? So you want to get all these, you want to gather all these in your arsenal, so that once you see these kind of setups, you can just quickly execute them because you understand what is happening in the market. There's also another trade I was taking. This is basically the head and shoulder pattern. Price broke this, break, retest. This is very simple. It's an impulsive move, price move correctively, and then we had a very big drop, right? So basically what I'm just trying to explain in this session is, one, when you identify an area of value, always make sure that you know exactly what you are waiting for, what you are looking for in that area of value, right? A lot of people sit at a key level, they are waiting for price to get to their key level, but they don't even know what they are waiting for in that key level, right? It's basically like me telling you to go outside and wait for the car. If I tell you to go outside and wait for the car, if I say the word the car, I'm not being specific because there are so many cars outside, right? So if I tell you to go and wait for the car, it will be a waste of time, because which car are you even gonna wait for? You'll be standing there from morning till evening without knowing the exact car you are waiting for, because there'll be so many cars passing by. But if I'm very specific, if I tell you to go outside and wait for that yellow car with pink tires, with green hood, with orange bonnet, with whatever, if I describe all these things to you, right, you exactly know what you are waiting for, right? So even if you're gonna stand there for hours, as long as you know exactly what you're waiting for, you're not gonna move until you see that. That is the same thing you want to do as a trader. If you have a zone, if you mark up levels, you are not just waiting for price to reach that level and then you just execute, right? That is not the goal. You want to identify exactly what you want to wait for in that zone, the confluences, the confirmations in that zone before you even execute. Because remember, I was telling my mentees that as a trader, you want to maximize profit and minimize losses. So you want to gather as many confirmations as you can get, so that once you see them in your zones, or once you see them in your levels, you can really execute, knowing that indeed you have confirmations in the market. All right, so guys, it is what it is. I believe you've learned something, and I believe I've been of a great help by sharing this trade and also explaining the thought process behind this. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you share, and I'll see you next time. All right, peace.